What if living alcohol-free could unlock a happier and healthier version of you? On today's episode of Sober Life Rocks, we're joined by Esther Avant, a health and fitness coach who's all about helping busy people thrive. She'll share her personal journey, her tips for creating a balanced life, and how embracing intentional choices like sobriety can transform your well-being. Stick around for an inspiring conversation that might just change how you see your sober journey.
Welcome to the Sober Life Rocks podcast. You may have made the decision not to drink alcohol, or at the very least, not at work-related events. Whether you've never been a drinker, are in recovery, or made a health-related decision, we see you, and you are not alone. In today's world, networking, socializing, and celebrations often happen over drinks, and the struggle can be real. Through this podcast, we're changing that narrative. We're here to create a community where individuals like you, who choose not to drink or drink less, can find camaraderie, support, and practical advice.
Today's episode is part of a series of wellness-focused topics. I'm so pleased to bring Esther Avant to talk to us. With 20 years of experience in the health and wellness industry, Esther has guided countless individuals towards achieving their goals both in health and beyond. Esther is the co-owner of Made by Me Coaching, the host of To Your Health podcast, and author of the best-selling book, To Your Health, A Lifestyle of Health, Happiness, and Confidence. Esther, welcome to the Sober Life Rocks podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for our conversation today.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to dive right in because, you've dedicated your career to helping people lead healthier, more intentional lives, which is what we're all about. So I'd love it if you would just start by sharing how has sober choices played a role in your own wellness journey?
Thank you for asking that. And I never really would have expected that it played any role. It really sort of happened accidentally. And as with a lot of people, during the pandemic, many of my clients started drinking more. Mm-hmm. And as we started sort of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and feeling like we're starting to come out the other side, a lot of my clients were struggling a bit with walking back their alcohol-related habits into, what they had been pre-pandemic. So I had a lot of clients, we're having these same conversations one-on-one with lots of different people. And I'm realizing I need to have some vetted resources to refer clients to help them explore their own relationship and kind of figure out where to go from here. That led me to reading This Naked Mind by Annie Grace. And again, I was not reading it for my own benefit. I wasn't a heavy drinker. I, maybe have a couple drinks a week. It, wasn't playing a huge role in my life at the time. And even throughout reading the book, I was kind of skeptical of, I don't know if this applies to me, or I'm not sure about that. And what's really interesting is I haven't had a drink since I finished the book. And there wasn't sort of, I don't even know what date that was. It was roughly 2.5 years ago. It just sort of, something in my brain kind of clicked. And I started being more discerning and thoughtful about why I was drinking in the first place. And I realized there was some of kind of just the ritualistic piece of after work on Friday, we have a cocktail or two to wind down and celebrate the weekend. Mm-hmm. And the other time I was drinking was in social situations where I felt uncomfortable. And I just realized I don't want to be defaulting to a poison for those reasons. And I haven't made this declaration that I will never drink again. I don't find that necessary. I've just decided, I have yet to come up against a situation that would be enhanced by having it. And I decided I would rather learn how to either not feel awkward socially or just be awkward and not have a drink in my hand, because I don't like the idea of needing this crutch in order to exist in the world.
Okay, and Esther, so which one was it? Are you awkward in social situations, or are you feeling awkward and not?
I'd say a little bit of both. There are times I still feel awkward and I'm like, well, you know what? I will just I'll just lean into that and it's okay. And then the other piece of it, kind of the relaxation ritual, I realized at those times, it's not like I was feeling the effects of alcohol. I wasn't drinking to get drunk, in which case I could just drink something else. And I could create a ritual around that thing, whether it was a mocktail or just something, kind of special that I don't drink during the week. I could get those benefits without the booze. And that's just kind of how it's been since. I'm not saying there'll never come a time when I want to have a drink and I'll deal with that then, but it's been really surprising actually how easy it's felt. That I feel like it kind of, tricked shifted my brain a little bit to feel differently about it. And that's part of what the book talks about, as I'm sure you're well aware, just how much kind of cultural brainwashing we get about alcohol and, how it's good for us and it helps us do this and helps us do that. It feels like kind of the wool gets pulled off your eyes and you start to see it differently. And then you start to look at other people and how they're using and abusing it. And you realize, I just don't want any part of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. We're told a little bit of alcohol is good for you. And there's this whole notion of what is a little bit of alcohol. And at least for somebody like me, it became this great justifier. Well, I'm doing something that's good for me, right? But I probably fell into the camp, likely, of a lot of the people that you saw that were really abusing it during those times. So now, moving forward, how have you been able to work with some of those people? And what are some of the physical and emotional changes that you might have seen in people who were on the more abuse spectrum as they've addressed this in their lives?
Yeah, it's really interesting. A lot of my clientele are peri and menopausal women who, I'm sure I don't need to tell you, are already experiencing a whole host of unpleasant symptoms and side effects that are only worsened by alcohol. And what's interesting is it all just kind of gets lumped together. And women, pretty much from like 35 on, are convinced anything they're experiencing is the fault of their hormones. And therefore, we don't even look at the alcohol as a potential culprit. And part of what I help clients do is feel empowered to recognize, although we can't control all of the changes our bodies are going through, we still have a lot of control over our lifestyle choices that can mitigate the symptoms we experience. And one of those big things is alcohol. So by just being willing to experiment, I think that's where it starts, is you don't need to make this grandiose declaration that, hi, I'm Esther and I had a drinking problem and therefore I have to be sober. It can just be, hey, you know what? I'm curious. Is the way I'm using this thing helping me or hindering me? And just being willing to say, I wonder what it would feel like if I didn't drink during the week, or I wonder what it would be like if instead of a bottle of wine on Friday night, I capped it at a glass or two. And just kind of, whatever feels doable for you to start, try it. Sometimes, we're recording this in January. A lot of people are doing dry January, which I think is a great foray into the world of sobriety. How do you feel after a month of not drinking? What comes up for you? What benefits are you noticing? And usually the tipping point is when you do start to feel better. I think a lot of people are so reliant on alcohol, but also have all sorts of other unhealthy lifestyle habits that we don't realize how badly we're feeling until we make some sort of change and can start to feel the difference and be like, oh, I thought, waking up sluggish was normal. I thought that, needing a pick-me-up at 3 p.m. is how everybody felt. And when you realize that it's not, then you're so much more motivated to say, okay, what are the things I'm doing that are making me feel better? I want more of that.
1,000%. And one of the things you said was really interesting, that a lot of people are experimenting during dry January. That's available to us year round. However, there is something in us that loves to be part of a tribe. And we love to be part of a movement. And so by taking advantage of, a dry January or a sober October, we can feel like we're part of something. And that's one of the reasons why, I love the idea of you coaching people, because it's that accountability. But Sober Life Rocks was formed so that people across the spectrum of sober curiosity, sober-ish, sober wingman, whatever, could be part of a tribe of people who just wanted to actually make choices that were conscious, as opposed to falling into the trap of just everybody else is doing it. I remember there was a dinner that I went to at a conference not too long, maybe this summer, and there was maybe 15 people, and 3 of the people at the table were Sober Life Rocks members, and we all knew each other. And one of the gals after dinner came up to me and she's like, normally I have a couple of drinks at dinners like this, and I just didn't out of solidarity. And I was like, well, that's sweet. You don't have to. She's like, no, but I just thought I would try and see what happens. She said, I actually feel better all the way through dinner and I saved some money. So, it's really cool when we can be part of a group that can uplift the notion of there's no have-tos, but we do get to make choices. Yeah.
I love that distinction. Yeah. And, it's cliche, but, the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, there's so much fascinating research on the impact of, our social circle on our choices, and not just the immediate people, but their friends, friends of friends. And I think having a platform like this and having people willing to say, yeah, I'm not drinking, is helping so many people to realize you're not going to become this social pariah if you decide to experiment with some different choices, and to even know another person who's done it and who can say, okay, well, I still like them. They're still getting out in the world. They're still successful in their business. It just really helps open your eyes to, all right, I won't become this black sheep, and let me just see. So I love that. And I love what you guys are doing with Sober Life Rocks and giving people that community, even if they don't have it, in their direct, in their real lives.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So one of the things about changing habits is that we do often start out with this, great head of steam, and we're so excited and we're full of great intentions. And then things slip. And I know you and I talked about this notion of these big rocks, like exercise or eating right, so talk to me about that.
I like the big rocks concept as kind of the antidote to overwhelm. There's so much information out there. There's so much conflicting information. And most of us have a tendency to default to, well, I don't want to do the wrong thing. So until I know what the right thing is, I'm not going to do anything. And spoiler alert, there's no one right thing for everybody. So we end up just doing nothing. Or we feel like in order to start, I need to do this whole laundry list of things and I need to do them perfectly. And if I can't, I might as well wait until I can. And then we do nothing. So the big rocks is a concept to help you focus on doing less, but doing what matters the most and doing it more consistently. That's what generates your results. And when you stop trying to have, 15 different balls in the air and you just focus on these few things, you feel way less overwhelmed and you're better able to master those behaviors and then make them feel easy so that it's taking less effort to maintain them. And they're simple things and they apply to basically everyone. Getting daily movement in, taking walks if you're able, but just having a generally active lifestyle, looking for opportunities to move more rather than less. Getting in a few strength training sessions throughout the week. Again, doesn't mean you need to join a bodybuilding gym. It doesn't mean spending hours under heavy equipment. A few sessions, full body, 30 minutes, a few times a week, you're good to go. Are you resting and recovering? This kind of burn the candle at both ends, no days off. It's not benefiting anybody, especially as we age. On the nutrition front, are you eating the right number of calories for your goals? We don't need to get into, calorie counting or the big to-do about calories, but they're a unit of energy and they matter. So having some understanding of what they are, the energy content of the foods you're eating, that's important. And then prioritizing your protein and your fiber. Those are your big exercise and nutrition rocks. And when you can pinpoint which ones you're already doing well and kind of have on autopilot, maybe you take a walk every day, you get your Apple Watch, it tells you good job, good to go, leave well enough alone. And then focus your energy on the areas that you see opportunity for yourself. And as you get more of those big rocks going consistently, you're going to see that the results you're looking for follow, and you don't feel like you've had to overhaul your whole life to achieve it.
I love that because it really just does simplify things. It's not so overwhelming. Talk to me a little bit about nutrition and alcohol.
All right. Well, number one, alcohol is empty calories. You are taking in energy that is doing nothing useful for your body. So if you have a weight loss goal, which many people do, you are making your life harder by drinking alcohol. First and foremost, due to those empty calories. Second, because metabolizing alcohol becomes priority number one. So anytime there's alcohol in your system for your body to break down and deal with, you are essentially pressing pause on fat loss. And
Wait, what?
third,
Wait,
yeah,
say that again.
that when you have alcohol in your body that needs to be metabolized, that is your body's top priority, right? Because it's like, hey, there's a poison in here. We got to get this out of here. So if you are trying to lose fat, the fat loss processes pause until the alcohol is out of your system. So if you think about how frequently a lot of people drink, if you have, a glass of wine most nights of the week, you have this like herky jerky, you keep making, you make a little bit of progress and then you press pause. So that's the second, which I think is like pretty mind blowing. The third, obviously, as you start to care less about what happens down the road and you're more focused on what you want in the moment, you're more likely to eat more in general. And usually not more salad. It's usually more hyper palatable, highly processed foods that, again,
Chicken wings and pizza.
Right, exactly. You can take in a lot of excess calories and do it pretty quickly. And then I'd say fourth and fifth kind of go hand in hand in that it's going to mess with your sleep. So you're not going to wake up as well rested as you would like and as would be ideal for you. And then on the piggybacking on that, now you have less energy. You're not going to, if you work out at all, it's not going to be as hard, and you're not going to get as much out of it. And that's assuming that you don't just skip it altogether. So there's just this massive cascade effect from drinking alcohol that has its hands in every aspect of your lifestyle. So if you're trying to get healthier, one of the simplest things you can do that will make everything else feel easier is drink less or not at all.
Oh, man. I knew about a lot of those. That one about burning fat, that is fascinating. One of the things, though, I will say is that if people have a regular habit of drinking, that sugar content, that high sugar content, when you quit, it kicks in hardcore. And I've been told by a number of doctors that it's okay to give yourself sort of a short ramp to have some replacement sugars at first, while the alcohol is leaving your body, while the cravings are sort of diminishing, and then secondarily, then address that high sugar need. Is that something that you subscribe to, or how do you feel?
I would say that makes sense. Yeah. So you got to you can't do it all at once. And if you want to be successful at, getting yourself off the alcohol and not having, withdrawal symptoms or just like the intense cravings for it, yeah, do what you got to do to deal with that first. And then sugar is going to seem like a smaller thing to tackle once you have. So yeah, I would say I support that.
Yeah. And even things like juices or fruits, those can be at least a healthier sugar alternative than candy or cake, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Now, one of the other things that you mentioned when you first talked about your own story was, why you were reaching for that drink. And it was sometimes, what I heard was it was sometimes in situations that you might have some stress around. So thinking about it from more that like stress relief or emotional crutch point of view, how do you recommend that people address that concern? Because I'll tell you, and I was just sharing this with somebody the other day, at the time that it was suggested that I might want to stop drinking, I had a lot in my life. I had a horrendous divorce going on. I was a single mother, supporting me and my kids by myself, a very high pressure job. And I just felt like the arrows were coming at me every day, all day. And I used to say, if you had my life, you would drink too. And so when it was suggested to me that I should stop drinking, my whole panic was like, then how am I going to be able to live my life? Like, honestly, honestly, how am I going to be able to live my life with all of these stressors and all of this stuff coming at me? So I'd love just to explore that with you.
Yeah, I'm curious. Is that when you quit? Did you quit in the midst of all of those stressors?
Mm-hmm.
Good for you. The first thing that came to mind, and I have a client who's currently quitting smoking, and there are, a lot of parallels there. The first thing that came to mind is you don't necessarily need to quit immediately. There are times that are going to be easier than others. And I have all the respect in the world for you for kind of ripping the Band-Aid and being like, yeah, everything else is up in flames. Why not add one more thing? There is something to be said for being honest with yourself and saying, do I have the mental, emotional bandwidth to take this on right now? Or is this something that like is on my radar and needs addressing, but I got to sort of deal with some other stuff first? I would say a great place to start for anyone, regardless of whether you're thinking now or at some point in the near future, is just starting to do some introspection and figure out what are the emotional needs that I'm using alcohol to fill. Because once you know the answers to that, then you're going to be better able to figure out the coping mechanisms or the different kind of skills or tools that will help you get yourself off it without becoming this emotional wreck. So, like in my example, relatively surface level, some relaxation, some just kind of like social discomfort. I didn't really feel like I needed to develop much in the way of new skills or tools for myself. More so it was just, hey, nobody's actually going to know the difference if you have a vodka soda in your hand or if it's just a soda. So you go in, just kind of act the part, be a confident person and just deal with a little bit of discomfort. But for a lot of people, it goes deeper than that. It is sort of this is how I deal with my stress. This is how I mask the fact that I'm really unhappy in this relationship or that I don't have the other coping mechanisms to deal with it in another way. So first identify what are the emotional needs and then start figuring out, well, what are some alternatives? Would it be helpful for me to start working with a therapist in anticipation of the fact that some messy stuff is going to come up when I no longer have this masking it? Would it be helpful for me to just experiment with journaling? Could I just take 5 minutes and kind of write down how I'm feeling or why I want to do this thing? What other emotional outlets are at all appealing to me? And something I interviewed, I wish I could remember which guest it was. I interviewed someone from my podcast. We were talking about emotional eating and just kind of general emotional needs and coping mechanisms. And she was saying, a lot of us expect ourselves to be good at using an alternative when we need it the most without ever practicing it when the stakes are low. And that was so eye-opening to me that, yeah, of course, we tell ourselves, oh, well, instead of drinking, I'll just meditate. But have I meditated at all before? No. So the odds of my suddenly wanting to, when what I really want is a drink, are really, really low. So giving yourself kind of that runway to say, I think that a yoga practice could benefit me. I'm going to start doing 5-10 minutes of yoga throughout the week to help myself see the benefits of it, help me realize that this actually is a good release. I actually do feel better after I've done this, so that then over time and repetition, I'm more likely to want to do that thing than to go to alcohol. So I think it's kind of that pre-work where we want to just like snap our fingers and it's all better. But the reality of it is it's going to take some practice. It's going to take repetition. And there are going to be a lot of times when you want to do the new thing and you still default to the old one, or you feel like you've gotten rid of the booze, but now you've replaced it with food. And I have a client who refers to it as whack-a-mole, where it's like you tackle one thing, another one pops up and you're just like, can't I catch a break? And you will, yes. But you do need to go into it with the mentality of some things are likely to come up for me throughout this process that I wasn't expecting. And I'm willing to work through and find solutions for whatever those things are.
And that is gold. That is absolute gold, because what we now know is that it's not just, alcoholism isn't just the person who's laying on the streets with the paper bag and the booze in the bottle, right? It is a alcohol use disorder spectrum. And according to the people who talk about this, everybody's on the spectrum somewhere, right? And the question is, have you reached the point where it no longer serves you? And if so, then what can you do to back off from that? And what I love about what you said is that, I was so far over on this other side, and I had never in my entire life developed coping mechanisms because that's not what I saw from my mother, and that's not what I've done for my entire life. I didn't know. I probably was not this person who would have been able to develop those while still drinking. I ended up going to a 30-day treatment center, and that was perfect for me because I learned all those skills there. But for people who are just looking at their relationship with alcohol, wondering whether or not this is serving them, I love the idea of developing some of these little small practices to see if maybe those reduce some of that stress. And now maybe the drink isn't necessary. That's beautiful. Exactly. That is gold. I love that. All right. I also, though, want to know, because you've done it, in this alcohol forward culture that we have, whether it's, hey, let's meet for happy hour, or if you're at a conference, like meeting over drinks, what advice do you have for people navigating those situations without alcohol in their hand?
Yeah, that really is the toughest part. Is it's so ingrained in our culture that, I'm sure I'm not the first person to make this comparison, but you hear all the time you would never go up to somebody and say, "Oh, why aren't you doing heroin tonight? Just do a little bit." But alcohol is so a part of our makeup that people do feel comfortable kind of pressing in those ways. So I think the first thing that's really helpful for me to remember is that people's reactions to things say more about them than they do about you. So more often than not, if someone is what feels like pressuring you to drink or is really, asking a lot of questions, and you're just like, let's leave it alone. Very often, they're just trying to be polite, and you're filtering it through kind of this defensive light where somebody's saying, "Are you sure I can't get you a drink?" isn't really pressuring you. It's like, I'm just asking again. It's like, could I get you a glass of water? Are you sure you're good? It's just, somebody being a good host or being gracious or something like that. So I think remembering that not everybody out there is out to attack you about this. And often if they're asking questions, they may be curious themselves, which is part of why I think what you and Laura are doing is so great, is that you can just sort of slip under the radar and not really tell people that you're not drinking. And often it will go unnoticed and you don't need to make a thing of it. But I also like the idea of being vocal because you have nothing to hide. And the more open we are about it, the more other people might be like, "Hey, yeah, I'm curious too. I'd like to learn more about this." So sometimes questions come from a place of curiosity. And if you do run into someone who is, pushing you and pressuring you, odds are they are feeling, there's a mirror being held up to them and they're like, "Oh, shoot, if everybody's drinking, it's normal. If other people aren't drinking and I'm drinking to excess, there's something wrong with me and I don't want to address that. So I'm going to put it back on you." So I think that's just really helpful to go into it, reminding yourself, this doesn't really have much to do with me. I think another piece, and I have a friend who was a big drinker and quit 6 months ago without any fanfare, just stopped, and that's been it. And something he said was that he can just be himself. He can act the same whether or not he's drinking. Mm-hmm. And what people like about him is his personality. So it doesn't matter if he's, 5 drinks deep or people just think he is. If he's being himself and he's engaging in the ways that people are used to and like him for, then that's it. So remind yourself that alcohol isn't why people like you. You are why people like you. And if you can be the same person, if you can be yourself, and odds are you're going to be more yourself when you're sober than you would with alcohol. And I think doing these are kind of cliche, but doing some of the small things, for me, I do feel more comfortable if I'm socializing if I have a cup in my hand. Doesn't really matter what's in it. It's just, arms can be kind of weird when you don't know what to do with them. And if you have a cup, then your arms have something to do. So just small things like that allow you to sort of replicate some of the comforts of drinking without actually involving the alcohol.
1,000%. I love that so much. Esther, this has been phenomenal. You've dropped so much gold. I know that people who hear you would really want to know how to connect with you. So tell me a little bit about your coaching and how to connect with you.
Yeah, so we do both one-on-one and corporate wellness programs, and it's all encompassing because, as we've talked about in this episode, you are a unique individual with intertwined aspects of your life. So to say we just do exercise programs, we just do nutrition, it's just not doing you any favors. So we look at the whole person. And what often happens is, you come to us for one thing, you say, I want help losing 20 pounds. And throughout the course of that really holistic coaching, you may start to question, I wonder about my alcohol, or this kind of came up for me. And we can help you kind of navigate whatever comes up in your pursuit of a healthy lifestyle. So you can learn more about that at madebymecoaching.com. And then if you want to do kind of the self-guided option, my book, To Your Health, is everything I've learned in the last 20 years of coaching in book form. And it's more of a roadmap type thing where it's interactive. I'm giving you the what to do and also helping you actually implement it. And then lastly, my podcast, also called To Your Health. We've got, I think we just hit the 4-year mark. So I've got almost 300 episodes of exercise, nutrition, lifestyle, mindset related content there as well.
Fantastic. And we'll put all of this into the show notes and make sure that people know exactly how to connect with you. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Sober Life Rocks. And a huge thank you to Esther Avant for sharing her wisdom, insights, and inspiration. Man, I'm just so touched by so many things. Your approach to wellness and intentional living reminds me it's really the power of choice about what is going to serve us best. Now, if today's conversation resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners like you who are navigating a sober journey. And here's something to celebrate. Sober Life Rocks is now the largest group on LinkedIn for sober professionals. It's a vibrant, supportive community where you can connect with like-minded individuals, share experiences, and keep the conversation going. So join us on LinkedIn today, and let's grow this incredible movement together. Until next time, remember, sobriety isn't just about what you're giving up. It's about what you're gaining. Stay inspired and keep rocking your sober life.